The Judgment Commander Elena Reyes stood alone in the center of the vast chamber, her dress uniform suddenly feeling too tight around her collar. Above her, arranged in 7 concentric rings that climbed toward a crystalline dome, sat the representatives of the Galactic Assembly, over 300 species that had governed interstellar affairs for millennia. Elena had rehearsed this moment for months. As Earth's appointed ambassador, she carried the hopes of 10 billion humans on her shoulders. After nearly a century of faster-than-light travel, humanity had finally been granted an audience with the Assembly to petition for full membership. Dubois, Assembly Speaker, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted between blue and green, activated the translation field that enveloped the chamber. The Assembly recognizes the representative of Sol system. The speaker's voice resonated through Elena's mind rather than her ears. You may present your petition. Elena cleared her throat. Esteemed members of the Galactic Assembly, I bring greetings from Earth and all human colonies. For 97 years we have explored the stars, established 17 settlements within our permitted zone, and maintained peaceful relations with all Assembly members we've encountered. We have carefully followed every regulation and guideline provided to us upon first contact. She gestured to the holographic display beside her, showing Earth's achievements, scientific advancements, and cultural highlights. We seek to join this august body as equal partners in galactic governance and commerce. We believe humanity has much to contribute to the greater galactic community. Our adaptability, creativity, and diverse perspectives can only enhance the collective wisdom of the Assembly. The chamber fell silent. Elena noticed several representatives leaning toward their neighbors, communication tentacles or appendages twitching in what she'd learned to recognize as concern. The speaker's skin darkened. The petition has been heard. The Observation Committee will now present its findings regarding Species 4291, designation, human. A section of the lowest ring illuminated. A bulbous creature with multiple eye stalks hovering over a console activated a different holographic display. Elena's heart sank as she saw what appeared. Humanity's wars, environmental disasters, rapid technological development. Species 4291 has been under observation since before they achieved spaceflight, the committee chair stated. Their development pattern is anomalous and concerning. While most species require between 300 and 500 standard cycles to progress from basic flight to FTL capability, humans achieved this transition in merely 66 cycles. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Furthermore, continued the chair, humans display extreme adaptability and unpredictable decision-making. They have modified Assembly-provided technological templates in ways that deviate significantly from standard implementations. The display showed human ships with peculiar engine configurations, habitat designs unlike any Assembly standard, and weapon systems that had been substantially altered. Most concerning is their population growth and expansion rate. In less than 1 century of FTL capability, they have established 17 colonies and increased their total population by 23%. Elena tensed. None of these observations were incorrect, but the framing made humanity's achievements sound like threats. I request permission to address these concerns, Elena said, keeping her voice steady. The speaker inclined their head. Granted, but briefly. Respected members, what you describe as anomalous development is simply human ingenuity and determination. We faced significant environmental challenges on Earth that accelerated our need for technological solutions. Our adaptability is our greatest strength, not a threat. She took a deep breath. As for our expansion, we have remained well within the boundaries established during first contact. Our population growth reflects improved living conditions as we spread sustainably across multiple worlds. A representative from the third ring, a crystalline entity that seemed to fracture and reform as it moved, illuminated their position. The question is not what humans have done, but what they might become. The crystalline being's thoughts resonated. Predictive models show that at current rates of development and expansion, humans would establish a sphere of influence equal to 7% of assembly space within just 300 cycles. No species has ever demonstrated such rapid growth potential. Potential is not destiny, Elena countered. We seek partnership, not dominance. Yet your history suggests otherwise, said another representative. A gaseous entity contained within, a sophisticated environmental suit. When has humanity encountered a less developed civilization and not fundamentally altered it? Your own planetary history shows consistent patterns. Contact leads to assimilation or conflict. Elena felt the conversation slipping away from her. We have evolved beyond our past mistakes. Our interstellar charter explicitly prohibits interference with developing civilizations. The speaker raised a limb, silencing the chamber. We will now vote on the petition of species 4291. Elena watched with growing dread as a holographic tally appeared in the center of the chamber. With each passing moment, the rejection column grew while approvals remained negligible. When the voting concluded, the result was unmistakable. Humanity's petition had been rejected by an overwhelming margin. The speaker's voice seemed colder now. Species 4291, your petition for Assembly membership is denied. Furthermore, the Assembly has determined that unrestricted human expansion presents a destabilizing influence in this sector. A new holographic display appeared, showing the Sol system and surrounding space. The following restrictions are hereby enacted. Human expansion is limited to the Sol system and its existing 17 colonies. No new settlements may be established. Technology development will be monitored with restrictions on propulsion, computation, and energy generation advancements. Assembly observers will be stationed at all human settlements to ensure compliance. Elena felt her face flush with anger and humiliation. These weren't just restrictions, this was a containment policy. Speaker, with respect, these measures go far beyond a simple membership rejection. You're effectively placing humanity under permanent quarantine. We are preserving galactic stability, the speaker replied. The Assembly has witnessed the rise and fall of many species. Those that expand too rapidly inevitably collapse, often causing significant damage to neighboring civilizations in the process. Elena straightened her shoulders. And if we refuse these restrictions? The chamber grew tense. Then the Assembly will be forced to take more direct measures to ensure compliance. We prefer cooperation, Commander Reyes. The threat wasn't subtle. Assembly peacekeeping forces were the most powerful military presence in the galaxy. I must consult with my government before responding to these terms, Elena said, fighting to keep her voice even. You have 14 standard cycles to provide Earth's official response. This audience is concluded. As the representatives began filing, out of the chamber a small figure approached Elena, a Tanari diplomat she'd met during preparatory meetings. The Tanari were one of the few Assembly species that had shown genuine interest in human culture. Commander Reyes, the Tanari said quietly, this outcome was predetermined. The Assembly fears what they cannot predict, and your species defies all their models. Will all Assembly members enforce these restrictions? Elena asked. The Tanari's ear membranes fluttered, their equivalent of a sad smile. Most will. Some may quietly maintain relations, but officially, you are now outsiders. Elena nodded. Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador. Good fortune, Commander. I suspect you will need it. When Elena returned to Earth, the Global Council was already in emergency session. The Assembly's decision had sent shockwaves through human society. Markets had crashed, protests had erupted in major cities, and colony representatives were demanding action. Elena stood before the council in the Helsinki chamber, concluding her detailed report. That's the situation we face. The Assembly has given us 14 days to accept their terms or face more direct measures. Director General Kwame Osei, the elected head of the Global Council, leaned forward. And your assessment of their capabilities? Their technology exceeds ours by several generations, sir. Their peacekeeping fleet alone could overwhelm our defenses, and they control the jump gate network. They could effectively isolate each of our colonies. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka, Chief of Fleet Operations, scowled. So we either accept becoming a vassal species, permanently stunted, or face annihilation? Those appear to be our options, yes, Elena confirmed grimly. A heavy silence fell over the chamber until Dr. Isabella Santos, the council's science director, cleared her throat. Perhaps not. There may be a third option, but it would require absolute secrecy and unity of purpose. All eyes turned to her. Explain, Osei prompted. The Assembly's jump gate network is ancient technology, dating back to civilizations that preceded even the Assembly itself. But our researchers have been developing an alternative FTL approach, one that doesn't rely on their network. Admiral Tanaka looked skeptical. The Alcubierre research? That's still theoretical? It was theoretical 5 years ago, Santos corrected. We've made significant progress since then. The principles are sound. With proper resources, we could have a working prototype within 2 years. Elena felt a flicker of hope. If we had independent FTL capability, we could access regions of space the Assembly considers worthless, Santos finished. They've mapped only about 4% of the galaxy, focusing on resource-rich systems near their established territories. There's an entire universe out there they've never bothered to explore. Osei's expression remained grave. You're suggesting we accept their terms publicly while secretly developing technology they've explicitly restricted? And eventually moving beyond their reach, Santos confirmed. It would require the largest covert operation in human history. It would mean abandoning Earth eventually, someone pointed out. Elena felt a chill as the implications sank in. Not abandoning, transforming. Earth would maintain compliance on the surface while serving as the staging ground for humanity's true future. Admiral Tanaka nodded slowly, warming to the idea. We'd need to design ships capable of supporting large populations for extended periods, colonial infrastructure that could be rapidly deployed, defense systems that don't rely on assembly principles. And we'd need to identify which regions to target, added Counselor Chen, the resource management director. Habitable worlds that the Assembly has overlooked. Osei looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's eyes. What we're discussing is the most consequential decision in human history. The risks are enormous. If the Assembly discovers our preparations before we're ready, they'll make an example of us, Elena finished quietly. But the alternative is a slow death, said Santos. Our colonies are already at maximum sustainable population. Without expansion, without technological advancement, humanity will stagnate. Within a few generations, we'd become entirely dependent on Assembly oversight and technology. Osei stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the chamber's dim lighting. I'm authorizing Project Exodus effective immediately. Priority level Alpha. Knowledge restricted to those in this room and essential personnel only. Admiral Tanaka, you'll oversee military preparations. Dr. Santos, you have unlimited resources for FTL development. Commander Reyes. Elena straightened. Sir? You'll return to the Assembly as our liaison. Your job is to make them believe we've accepted our fate while buying us as much time as possible. Elena nodded, understanding the immense responsibility. She would become humanity's greatest actor on the galactic stage. How will we communicate our true intentions to our people? Asked Counselor Chen. They deserve to know we haven't surrendered. Osei's expression was grim but determined. We'll use the Cultural Preservation Initiative. Officially, it's a program to document human achievement in case of cultural absorption. Unofficially, it will contain our message to future generations, that what seems like submission is actually preparation. And if the Assembly monitors it? Elena asked. It will be encoded in our art, our music, our literature. Patterns only. Humans would recognize, Osei explained. What looks like cultural nostalgia to outsiders will be our promise to our children that humanity's story is far from over. As the council began detailing the immense undertaking before them, Elena gazed out the chamber's window at the Helsinki skyline. The Assembly thought they were containing humanity's potential, clipping its wings before it could truly fly. They didn't understand that throughout human history, nothing had driven innovation and unity more effectively than opposition. In trying to prevent humanity's rise, the Assembly had almost certainly guaranteed it. The Exodus 10 years after the Assembly's judgment, Dr. Malik Singh stood in the observation deck of the Columbus, Earth's largest spacecraft ever constructed. At 3 kilometers long and housing 50,000 people, it was a marvel of engineering, and completely unknown to the Assembly monitors who believed they were tracking all significant human activity. The ship was hidden in plain sight, constructed in segments within hollowed-out asteroids in the Kuiper Belt, beyond the regular patrol routes of Assembly observers. What those observers saw as mining operations were actually the largest shipyards in human history. "Final systems check complete," announced Captain Maya Ortiz, joining Malik at the viewport. "Life support functioning at optimal levels. Fusion. Reactor stable. Sing drive ready for initiation." Malik smiled at the name. The revolutionary propulsion system, officially the quantum displacement drive, had become known as the Sing drive among the project staff. Unlike the Assembly's jump gates that created temporary wormholes between fixed points, the Sing drive folded space-time around the ship itself, enabling travel to any location without fixed infrastructure. "And the other ships?" Malik asked. "The Zhenghe, Mansa Musa, and Amundsen are all reporting ready status," Maya confirmed. "The next wave will launch in 6 months, assuming our departure doesn't trigger Assembly response." Malik nodded, watching as technicians in EVA suits completed the final external preparations. "Any word from Commander Reyes?" Maya's expression tightened. Her last coded message confirmed the Assembly remains oblivious to Project Exodus. Their monitors continue to report that humans have accepted their appropriate developmental level. "Arrogant bastards," Malik muttered. 10 years of playing the compliant species has paid off, it seems. The intercom chimed. "Dr. Singh, final authorization requested for departure sequence." Malik exchanged glances with Maya. This was the moment they had worked toward for a decade, humanity's first step toward true independence. "Authorization granted," he replied. "Initiate countdown." Throughout the 4 massive colony ships, announcements alerted the colonists to prepare for departure. These weren't military personnel or hardened explorers. They were families, scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, and artists. A cross-section of humanity selected for their skills, adaptability, and psychological resilience. Malik made his way to the bridge, where the ship's senior staff had gathered. On the main display, a secure transmission from Earth showed Director General Osi, now noticeably aged by the stress of the past decade. "Dr. Singh, Captain Ortiz," Osi greeted them. "History will remember this day, though perhaps not for many generations. You carry humanity's future with you." "We won't let you down, sir," Maya replied. Osi nodded solemnly. "Our observers report no unusual Assembly activity. You should have a clean exit from the system. Remember, once you activate the Sing drive, all communication will cease until you reach your destination and deploy the quantum entanglement communicators." "Understood," Malik said. "That could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on stellar conditions at our targets." "Godspeed," Osi said simply, and the transmission ended. The countdown reached 0, and with surprising gentleness the massive ships began to move. Conventional thrusters pushed them beyond the Kuiper Belt, maintaining minimal energy signatures to avoid detection. It would take nearly 2 weeks to reach a safe distance for the Sing drive activation. Those 2 weeks were the most tense of Malik's life. Every hour brought them closer to freedom, but also increased the risk of discovery. Assembly patrols occasionally passed within detection range, but the ship's advanced stealth systems, another technology developed in secret, kept them hidden. Finally, they reached the activation point, a region of space far from regular shipping. Lanes and monitoring stations. "All ships report ready for Sing drive activation," Maya announced on the 14th day. "Coordinates locked for the Odysseus system." Malik took a deep breath. The Odysseus system was one of 20 potential habitats identified by unmanned probes, secretly launched years earlier. Located nearly 600 light-years from Earth, in a direction the Assembly had never bothered to explore thoroughly, it contained 2 potentially habitable planets. "Initiate Sing drive," Maya ordered. The stars outside the viewport seemed to stretch, then swirl in patterns that human eyes weren't equipped to properly process. Many colonists experienced mild nausea during the transition, but the effect quickly passed. They had done it. They were beyond the assembly's reach. The Odysseus system exceeded all expectations. The fourth planet, dubbed Nova Terra, was a terrestrial world with breathable atmosphere, abundant water, and complex but non-sentient life forms. Within 6 months of arrival, the colonists had established their first permanent settlement, New Horizon. Malik stood on a ridge overlooking the fledgling city, marveling at what they had accomplished. Prefabricated structures had been supplemented with locally sourced materials. Fields of earth crops expanded daily. Solar arrays and small fusion plants provided ample energy. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" said Maya, joining him on the ridge. "More than I dared hope for," Malik admitted. The colonists from the Mansa Musa report similar progress on Nova Terra's southern continent, and the Junghee's settlement on the second habitable planet is proceeding on schedule. Maya handed him a tablet. "The long-range scouts have returned. From the neighboring systems, you should see this." Malik scrolled through the data, his excitement growing. "These mineral deposits, they're richer than anything in assembly space." "Not just minerals," Maya pointed out. "Those readings from the Proxima system, the scouts detected artificial structures." Malik looked up sharply. "Assembly outposts?" "No." Maya shook her head. "The architecture is completely different. And they're old, possibly abandoned for centuries." Before they could discuss further, Malik's communicator chimed. "Dr. Singh, we're receiving a transmission via the quantum entanglement link. It's Earth." Minutes later, Malik and Maya stood in the communications center as Director General Osei's face appeared on the screen. "Dr. Singh, I'm relieved to see you well," Osei said. "Your status reports have brought hope to everyone involved in Project Exodus." "The colonies are thriving, sir," Malik reported. "All 4 ships successfully established settlements. We've begun surveying additional systems. For the next wave," Osei's expression grew serious. "That may need to accelerate. We've received intelligence from Commander Reyes that the assembly is growing suspicious. Several observer reports have noted discrepancies in resource allocation and population distribution." "How much time do we have?" Maya asked. "Uncertain. Months, perhaps a year before they conduct a thorough audit. The second wave is nearly ready. We'll launch as soon as possible." Osei hesitated. "There's something else. The assembly recently added a new member species, the Vorn. They're providing advanced scanning technology that might detect our stealth systems." Malik exchanged worried glances with Maya. "We'll need to prepare defenses just in case." "Commander, Rhea suggests focusing on systems furthest from assembly space," Osei continued. "And she may need to implement Blackout Protocol soon." Malik felt a chill. Blackout Protocol would sever all covert communications between Earth and the colonies, leaving each to develop independently. It was their final contingency if discovery seemed imminent. "Understood, sir. We'll accelerate exploration and preparation for the next wave." After the transmission ended, Maya turned to Malik. "We should investigate those artificial structures in the Proxima system immediately. If there's another spacefaring species out here, it could change everything," Malik agreed. "Either an ally or a new threat." 2 months later, Malik stood in awe before what could only be described as an alien city. The structures, built from a crystalline material that seemed to capture and amplify light, had clearly been designed for beings unlike any in the assembly. "The dating puts this settlement at approximately 300 years old," reported Dr. Layla Nkosi, their chief xenoarchaeologist. "Abandoned rather than destroyed. There's no evidence of conflict." "Any indication of where they went?" Malik asked. Layla pointed to markings on what appeared to be a central monument. "These star patterns suggest a direction. We're still deciphering the numerical system, but they seem to have moved further away from assembly space." Captain Ortiz, who had led the expedition, approached with a portable scanner. "Sir, we're detecting energy readings from the central structure. Very faint, but definitely active." Following the energy signature led them to what appeared to be a communication hub. After careful study, Layla activated what seemed to be an interface designed for multiple tentacle-like appendages. To everyone's shock, A holographic figure appeared, a tall willowy being with 6 limbs and luminous skin. "Greetings," the figure said in a melodic language that their translators couldn't process. Layla carefully adjusted settings, feeding in linguistic algorithms. After several attempts, fragments began to translate, message to any who follow. "Alliance of Exiles welcomes, beyond the reach of the assembly." Malik felt his heart race. Alliance of Exiles? There are others? As they continued working on the translation, more of the message became clear. The beings, calling themselves the Novali, had been exiled from assembly space centuries ago for evolutionary divergence. They had established a network of colonies in this region of space and encountered other species similarly rejected by the assembly. They left this beacon for others who might follow the same path, Layla explained, excitement clear in her voice. The coordinates lead to their current primary world, about 30 light-years from here. Malik immediately contacted the colonial leadership. Within days, a delegation including Malik and Maya departed aboard the scout ship Magellan, following the Novali coordinates. What they found transformed their understanding of the galaxy. The Novali homeworld, Luminara, housed not only the crystalline beings who had left the beacon, but representatives of 7 other species, all former assembly subjects who had either been explicitly exiled or had chosen to leave rather than accept limitations. The Novali leader, a being named Zirith, welcomed the human delegation with surprising warmth. "We have observed your arrival in this region with great interest," Zirith communicated through a more sophisticated translation device. "Your technology is unlike the assembly standard template's impressive adaptations. We were forced to develop alternatives when the assembly restricted our advancement," Malik explained. Zirith's skin pulsed with what they later learned was amusement. "The assembly's greatest failure is its inability to recognize that restriction breeds innovation. Each species here has developed technologies the assembly deems impossible or impractical. Over the following weeks, the human delegation was introduced to the Alliance members, the Novali, masters of crystalline technology and photonics, the Krell, barrel-chested beings with advanced metallurgy and weapon systems, the gaseous Veth, experts in atmospheric engineering, the insectoid Thraxians, whose biological technology surpassed anything in assembly space, and others, each with unique capabilities and knowledge. "We do not seek to challenge the assembly," explained Krell Ambassador Gorick. "We simply wish to develop according to our own nature, not their prescribed patterns. Yet you maintain this alliance," Maya observed. "For mutual protection and advancement," Zirith confirmed. "Alone, each of our civilizations might be vulnerable. Together, we secure our freedom through cooperation." On their final day, the Alliance leaders made an unexpected proposal. "We invite humanity to join the Alliance of Exiles," Zirith announced. "Your Sing drive technology would be particularly valuable. Our own FTL methods are effective but less elegant." Malik considered the implications. "We would need to consult our full leadership, but speaking personally, I believe such an alliance would benefit all our peoples." Gorick's rumbling voice conveyed determination. "The Assembly believes they have contained you, as they once thought they contained us. They do not understand that in casting us out, they created something new, something potentially greater than themselves." As the Magellan prepared to return to Nova Terra, Malik gazed at the spectacular view of Luminara. They had come seeking a refuge, but had found so much more. Potential allies who shared their experience of rejection and their determination to forge a different path. The Assembly had intended exile as a punishment. Instead, they might have inadvertently created their greatest rival. The rising tide 25 years after the first colony ship slipped away from Earth, Admiral Kira Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, flagship of the Coalition Defense Force. At 47, she had spent more than half her life beyond assembly space, rising through the ranks of the new military that protected humanity's expanding frontier. Through the viewport, she could see the spectacular orbital habitat that served as the headquarters for the Human Alliance Coalition, a massive structure combining architectural elements from all 9 member species. It orbited the neutral world of Concordia, selected for its central location among Alliance territories. Status report, Kira requested, turning to her executive officer. Commander Jackson Taylor, a colonist born on Nova Terra, consulted his terminal. The Proxima and Centauri fleets are in position. The Krell battle groups have confirmed their coordinates. Thraxian bioships report ready status. The Novali light cruisers are maintaining stealth observation of the target system. Kira nodded, studying the tactical display, showing the largest combined military operation in the Coalition's history. Nearly 300 ships, positioned around a system at the edge of assembly space where an anomaly had been detected. The door to the bridge slid open, admitting a distinguished older man with silver hair and dark brown skin. Malik Singh, now serving as Coalition Science Director. "Admiral," he greeted Kira. "The final analysis confirms our suspicions. The quantum ripples emanating from the Vesper system match the signature of Void Eaters." Kira felt a chill. The Void Eaters were not a species, but a phenomenon. Self-replicating machines left behind by a long-vanished civilization. They consumed matter at the atomic level to produce more of themselves, leaving devastation in their wake. The Alliance had encountered them 15 years earlier, losing an entire colony world before developing countermeasures. "How many assembly worlds are in the potential path?" she asked. "At least 7, Malik replied grimly, "including 2 major population centers. Based on their current growth rate, they'll reach the first assembly world within 3 months. Commander Taylor frowned. "The assembly doesn't even know what's coming. Their defensive systems are designed for conventional threats, not Void Eaters." "Which leaves us with a difficult decision," Kira stated, giving voice to what everyone was thinking. "Do we warn them?" The question hung in the air. For 25 years, the Coalition had operated in the shadows of galactic politics. Earth maintained its facade of compliance while secretly sending millions of people to the new colonies. The Assembly remained unaware of the thriving civilization that had developed beyond their border. 16 human worlds and dozens of Alliance settlements, connected by technology the Assembly had deemed impossible. If they revealed themselves, now to warn the Assembly about the Void Eaters, decades of secrecy would end. "I've consulted with the Coalition Council," Malik said after a moment. "They've authorized me to inform you that this decision rests with you, Admiral. As the commander of our combined forces, you must determine if intervention is strategically sound." Kira raised an eyebrow. "They're punting the most consequential decision since the exodus to a military officer?" Malik smiled thinly. "They recognize that you have the most complete tactical picture, and perhaps they prefer that history judge someone other than themselves." "Convenient," Kira muttered. She turned to the viewport again, gathering her thoughts. Alliance had originally detected the Void Eaters because of their quantum scanning technology, something the Assembly had never developed, focusing instead on gravitational sensors. The Assembly wouldn't see the threat until it was too late. "If we do nothing," she said slowly, "billions of sapient beings will die. Assembly species who had no part in the decision to exile humanity or the other Alliance members. And if we intervene," Taylor countered, "we reveal our existence, our technology, and our strength. The Assembly may see us as a greater threat than the Void Eaters." Kira turned to Malik. "What's the latest from Earth?" "Director General Osei passed away last year," Malik reminded her gently. "His successor, Director General Kagawa, maintains that Earth cannot officially acknowledge the Coalition without risking Assembly sanctions. However, she transmitted an encrypted personal message for you." He handed Kira a data crystal. She inserted it into her private terminal and read the brief message. "Admiral Chen, Earth remains bound by the terms of our agreement with the Assembly, but our people have not forgotten who we truly are. The decision before you transcends politics. It speaks to the essence of humanity. We trust you to honor that essence." Kagawa had been careful not to explicitly authorize intervention, plausible deniability if the message was ever discovered. But her meaning was clear. Kira took a deep breath. "Commander Taylor, signal the fleet. We are implementing Operation Lighthouse." Taylor looked surprised but quickly composed himself. "Yes, Admiral." "Dr. Singh, Please prepare a comprehensive briefing on the Void Eaters and our countermeasures. Include all relevant scientific data. As they moved to execute her orders, Kira opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral Chen. For 25 years we have built our society beyond the reach of those who rejected us. We have thrived in exile, creating something perhaps greater than what we left behind. She paused, knowing her next words would reshape the course of human history. Today we face a choice between continued security in the shadows or standing in the light to save those who once cast us out. I have chosen the latter, not because we owe the Assembly anything, but because who we are, as humans and as an alliance, must transcend old grievances. Operation Lighthouse is now active. Chen out. The Assembly Emergency Council convened in a state of near panic. Reports from the outer systems described an incomprehensible horror, entire planets being systematically disassembled by microscopic machines that multiplied exponentially. 3 worlds had already gone silent. Assembly defense forces had proven ineffective. Conventional weapons simply created smaller fragments that continued their consumption. Energy weapons dispersed the machines temporarily, but they quickly reformed. In the grand chamber where humanity had once been judged and found wanting, representatives argued desperately about evacuation priorities and resource allocation. The ancient speaker, one of the few still serving from the time of humanity's judgment, called for order. Our scientists are working to develop countermeasures, but preliminary projections indicate the phenomenon will reach core assembly worlds within 20 standard cycles. A holographic alert interrupted the proceedings. Speaker, unidentified vessels have appeared at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. The display shifted to show a formation of ships unlike any in the assembly registry. Sleek vessels with distinctive propulsion systems that created rippling patterns in space-time. Classification unknown, reported the Assembly Defense Coordinator. They appear to be using an FTL method outside our technical parameters. Scan for life signs, ordered the speaker. A moment later, the report came back. Multiple species detected, including, "This cannot be correct." "Report, Coordinator," the speaker insisted. "Humans, Speaker. The ships contain humans, along with Novali, Krell, and other exile species." Stunned silence fell over the chamber, broken only when a new transmission came. Through on all assembly channels, a human woman in a formal uniform appeared on the holographic display. "This is Admiral Kira Chen of the Coalition Defense Force. We have detected what you're calling the consumption phenomenon and have experience combating it. We refer to them as Void Eaters, self-replicating machines programmed to convert matter into copies of themselves." The speaker recovered first. "Identify yourself and your authority." "Humans are restricted to Sol system and authorized colonies." Admiral Chen smiled faintly. "That restriction hasn't been relevant for some time, Speaker. While Earth has maintained compliance, humanity has expanded well beyond your borders. We currently inhabit 16 worlds and have formed an alliance with 8 other species, all former subjects of the Assembly, who were either exiled or departed voluntarily." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. The defense coordinator was frantically consulting data screens. "Impossible. Our monitoring systems would have detected—" "Your monitoring systems detect what they're designed to detect," Chen interrupted. "We develop technologies that operate on principles you dismissed as theoretical, but that's a discussion for another time. Right now, you face extinction from the Void Eaters." The speaker's skin had darkened to a deep blue, a sign of extreme stress in their species. "Why would you offer assistance to the Assembly after being exiled?" "Because despite our history, we haven't abandoned the principles that define us," Chen replied. "We're transmitting technical specifications for quantum resonance weapons that disrupt the Void Eaters' replication programming. We've also deployed our fleet to create a containment perimeter. With your cooperation, we can prevent further spread." The Assembly Council erupted in debate. Some representatives argued that this was a trick, a human plot to infiltrate assembly space. Others pointed out desperately that they had no alternative. The Void Eaters had already consumed 3 worlds, and conventional defenses were useless. We will need time to verify your information, the speaker said finally. Time is the one resource you don't have, Chen replied. Our projection models indicate the Void Eaters will reach the Proxima Assembly outpost within 48 hours. We're moving to intercept now, with or without your authorization. The speaker conferred hastily with the Defense Council before responding. We accept your assistance, Admiral Chen, under protest and subject to full review once the crisis has passed. Chen nodded. Understood. Please direct your defense forces to the coordinates we're transmitting. They'll rendezvous with coalition ships for deployment instructions. As the transmission ended, the speaker turned to the assembly. Contact Earth immediately. I want to know how this happened under our observation. 3 weeks later, the combined forces of the coalition and the assembly had managed to contain the Void Eater outbreak. The quantum resonance weapons had proven effective, disrupting the nanomachines' programming and rendering them inert. 7 assembly worlds had been saved, though 3 had been lost before the intervention. Kira stood in a diplomatic shuttle approaching the assembly headquarters. After decades of secrecy, humanity and its allies were about to formally engage with the civilization that had once rejected them. Nervous? Asked Zirith, the Novali representative who accompanied her. Concerned, Kira corrected. The assembly isn't accustomed to losing control of the narrative. They've had 3 weeks to formulate a response to our existence. They are pragmatists, if nothing else. Zirith's crystalline features shimmered. Our technological advantage is undeniable. The Sing drive alone gives us strategic superiority. The shuttle docked with the massive assembly station. Kira and Zirith were joined by representatives from each coalition species, creating a striking delegation as they walked through the corridors toward the council chamber. Assembly citizens stopped to stare at the procession. Humans had been rare sights in assembly space for decades, and some of the coalition species had been absent for centuries. The chamber itself was much as Elena Reyes had described it in the historical accounts. Concentric rings rising toward a crystalline dome with hundreds of representatives from member species. But now, a new section had been prepared. A set of 9 seats for the coalition delegation. The speaker called the session to order. This emergency gathering of the assembly will address the existence and status of the entity, referring to itself as the Human Alliance Coalition. Kira stepped forward. With respect, Speaker, we aren't seeking your recognition or approval. We're here to establish diplomatic relations between equals. This caused immediate commotion. The speaker raised their limbs for silence. Admiral Chen, the Assembly has governed interstellar affairs in this sector for over 12,000 years. Your coalition has existed for barely a quarter century. Yet in that brief time, Kira responded, we've developed technologies that surpass yours in several critical domains. We've established a multi-species society without the hierarchical restrictions that define Assembly membership. And we've demonstrated our capacity for intervention when needed, as recent events have shown. A representative from the upper tier, one of the Assembly's founding species, illuminated their position. The human speaks with remarkable confidence for a species that deceived us for decades. We deceived no one, Kira countered. Earth has strictly adhered to all restrictions placed upon it. The coalition was formed beyond your claimed territory, by those you had already rejected, using technologies explicitly restricted in your agreement, added the defense coordinator. Zirith moved forward, the lights of the chamber refracting brilliantly through his crystalline form. The Assembly has always failed to understand a fundamental truth about sentient life. Restriction breeds innovation. When you told the Novali our photonic technology was too disruptive to permitted development patterns, we simply moved beyond your reach to develop it fully. When you deemed Thraxian biological engineering unsuitable for stable governance, they perfected it independently. The speaker's skin had shifted to a troubled purple hue. This coalition of exile species threatens the established order of galactic civilization. Only if that order cannot accommodate change, Kira replied. We're not here to challenge the Assembly's existence, merely its claim to universal authority. She gestured to the coalition delegates. Each species here has thrived outside your developmental frameworks. Together, we've created technologies you deemed impossible and built a society based on mutual benefit rather than hierarchical control. And what do you propose? Asked the speaker after a lengthy silence. Kira activated a holographic display showing galactic territorial boundaries. We propose formal recognition of coalition space, the regions we currently inhabit beyond assembly, borders. We offer trade agreements, technological exchange, and security cooperation with any assembly species that wishes to engage with us as equals. The display shifted to highlight the systems where the Void Eaters had been contained. The recent crisis demonstrates that threats exist which neither of us anticipated. There will be others. We can face them as adversaries or as reluctant partners. The council chamber erupted in conflicting opinions. Some representatives saw opportunity in relations with the coalition. Others warned of the dangerous precedent it would set. After hours of debate, the speaker called for order. The Assembly cannot render an immediate decision on these proposals. We require consultation with our respective governments. Of course, Kira agreed. We'll establish a diplomatic outpost at neutral coordinates to facilitate ongoing communication. As the session adjourned, an elderly human approached Kira, Elena Reyes, now in her 70s, still serving as Earth's official liaison to the Assembly. Admiral Chen, she said quietly. When I stood in this chamber 35 years ago, I could never have imagined this moment. Kira smiled. You bought us the time we needed, Ambassador. Your decades of work made all of this possible. Elena glanced around the emptying chamber. They're frightened. You've shattered their perception of the natural order. Good, Kira replied. Fear can be the beginning of respect. Or of conflict, Elena cautioned. The Assembly doesn't adapt quickly. They'll adapt, or they'll become irrelevant, Kira stated. The galaxy is larger and more complex than their orderly models allowed for. The exile species proved that. As they walked together toward the diplomatic shuttle, Elena looked thoughtful. You know, the ancient Greeks had a concept, hubris, the dangerous pride that comes before a fall. I wonder sometimes if we've merely replaced assembly hubris with our own. Kira considered this. Perhaps. But I prefer to think we've replaced certainty with curiosity. The Assembly believed they knew the optimal development pattern for all species. We recognize that diversity of approach creates resilience. She looked out a viewport at the Assembly Station, a marvel of engineering, the product of millennia of civilization. We don't want to destroy what they've built, Ambassador. We just want the freedom to build something different alongside it. 6 months later, Kira stood with Malik Singh on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, the newly constructed diplomatic hub at the border between Assembly and Coalition space. Below them, ships from both civilizations docked in separate but adjacent bays. The trade agreements with the Tanari and Volocris are proceeding well, Malik noted. 6 more Assembly species have requested preliminary talks. And the Security Council? Kira asked. Still deadlocked. The Assembly military establishment remains resistant to joint operations beyond emergency response. Kira nodded. She'd expected this. Centuries of unchallenged authority wouldn't yield to partnership easily. Director General Kagawa sent a new communication, Malik added, his expression complex. Earth is formally requesting permission to gradually reveal the existence of the coalition to its population. Kira raised an eyebrow. After 35 years of secrecy? Assembly restrictions have become increasingly difficult to maintain, Malik explained. Too many families have members both on Earth and in coalition space. The cultural markers from Project Exodus have become mainstream art forms. People are figuring it out on their own. Kira smiled at the irony. So Earth wishes to acknowledge what the Assembly now knows anyway. Precisely. Kagawa argues it would ease the transition toward more open relations. A notification chimed, and a holographic display activated to show a Novali ship emerging from Sing Drive Transit. The swirling patterns of space-time folding were distinctive and beautiful. I never tire of watching that, Malik said. To think the assembly dismissed space-time folding as theoretically unsound. Their loss, our gain, Kira replied. She turned to face the older scientist. When you and the others first fled Earth, did you imagine this outcome? Malik shook his head. We hoped only for survival, a quiet existence beyond assembly reach, finding the other exile species, building the coalition. That was beyond our wildest expectations. And now we stand as equals with those who judged us unworthy, Kira mused. Not merely equals, Malik corrected. In many ways we've surpassed them. Our composite technology, combining human adaptability, Novali photonics, Thraxian bioscience, and Krell metallurgy, has created capabilities the assembly never conceived. They watched as a delegation of assembly scientists boarded the station, clearly eager to attend the scheduled technology exchange conference. They're learning, Kira observed. Slowly, reluctantly, but learning nonetheless. As are we, Malik said. The Assembly's experience in long-term civilization management, their historical archives, there's much we can gain from them as well. A aide approached, informing Kira that the Coalition Council was assembling for their scheduled meeting. As she prepared to leave, Malik placed a hand on her shoulder. You know, the Assembly was right about one thing, he said. Humanity does adapt faster, change quicker than other species. They saw it as dangerous, a destabilizing force. And you? Kira asked. Malik smiled. I think they confused stability with stagnation. The universe isn't static. It's constantly evolving. Perhaps what the galaxy needed wasn't the Assembly's rigid order, but humanity's adaptability tempered by the wisdom of our exile allies. As Kira walked toward the council chamber, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The Assembly had intended to contain humanity, to prevent what they saw as a potential threat. Instead, they had created the very conditions that allowed humans to forge unexpected alliances and develop revolutionary technologies. In exiling humanity, they had set it free. And now, as the borders between Assembly and Coalition space became increasingly permeable as trade and cultural exchange accelerated, a new galactic order was emerging, one built not on restriction and control, but on diversity and adaptation. The Assembly had tried to write humanity's story for them, defining their place in the cosmos according to ancient models and predictive algorithms. But humanity had always written its own story, even when the pages seemed most constrained. That, perhaps, was the greatest lesson of the exile. Destiny wasn't something assigned by distant authorities, but something forged through determination, innovation, and the courage to venture beyond established boundaries. As Kira took her place at the Coalition Council table, surrounded by representatives of species once deemed unfit for self-determination, she couldn't help but appreciate the perfect irony. The Assembly had exiled them all to prevent disruption to the galactic order, and in doing so, they had created something far greater instead. The end.